Yeah, it's the Weege Show. I'll be back in the booth calling the action next weekend. Monster Energy Supercross from Anaheim 2. But first, let's think about this race that happened tonight. Often the first couple rounds of a season, specifically in Supercross, provide great memories, unpredictable finishes, racing. Last year we had mud races, Aaron Plessinger taking a victory. I remember one year Justin Barcia and Blake Baggett won the first two races of the year. You had Tomac crashing and coming back to win. Anaheim won 2 years ago. A lot of memorable Anaheim ones. The Millsaps-Kennard battle, the Josh Grant upset when Stewart and Reed crashed into each other. Those are memorable races. This one ranks right up there with any of them. It is the race that we wanted to see and the race that probably we shouldn't have had, because the racing gods decided for some reason midway through the 2023 season that the culmination of an amazing pro motocross campaign between Eli Tomac and Chase Sexton was going to spill over into the 2023 pro motocross campaign with Jett Lawrence moving in as a rookie. And yet somehow Tomac went down with the most unpredictable injury of all time. He was laps away from the Supercross title and instead tore his Achilles. Sexton crashed in practice at the opening round of motocross, and it has been the Jett Lawrence show in the 450 division ever since. And even though Tomac returned to the racetrack last year, look, he wasn't as good as Jett. He could have retired after the Achilles injury. He could have retired after last season. The fact that he was willing to come back and put in this kind of work and erase all the other reasons that we thought he might not be able to get back to his old heights. Look, man, Tomac doesn't explain much to us. When he has bad races, he doesn't usually tell you why. It took us a dozen years to find out. Most of the time, it was just the back of his bike was too low and it led him to hang on too tight and get arm pump. It took us 12 years to find that out. Last year, he was good, but he wasn't as good as he was in previous years. It turns out he just wasn't in good enough shape yet. He was coming back from a major injury. He didn't say that because Tomac never gives excuses. But everything we have seen thus far with Jett battling Eli, and let's be honest, there have been a lot of races over the last year where Tomac has been very good at the beginning of the race. Honestly, probably better at the beginning of races than he was for the majority of his career. Not just starts, but early race sprint speed. But he hadn't been able to hold it. That was the case at the Vegas SMX. That was the case a couple races in Supercross last year. That was even the case at Motocross of Nations. Tomac has been very good at times. He showed Jett-like pace at times last year. They battled. But he wasn't able to do it the whole time. But we were off the scent, man. We were off the mark. We didn't know. It was just he's not quite up to full race fitness yet, coming off an Achilles. The amount of times I heard, look, Eli's got kids at home. He doesn't want to hang it out. He's too old. He doesn't want to hang it out. He doesn't want to take those risks. Well, he's still got kids at home, and he's actually older today than he was the day before that, and certainly older than he was last year. He has the full race fitness back. We did see some of the sprint speed come back as the year went on last year. Now the full race fitness. This is the full program. These are the battles that we were supposed to have seen and probably then weren't going to finally taking place. To see Jett Lawrence and Eli Tomac throw down like that is something that would have been so tragic to have never gotten the chance to see. Now let's hope that we get 15 more of these in Supercross and a whole bunch, and they're racing all the way through Pro Motocross like this. Imagine getting two motos like this. Imagine getting SMX like this. Imagine maybe another showdown at the Nations like this. That would be great, right? But even if we don't, we need to relish the moment. We had it finally. And let's be honest, if you quizzed any of the people in the stands, if you polled them and said, who do you want to win? They're pretty much all rooting for Tomac at this point, so they even got the outcome that they wanted as well. Here's Eli.
Well, it's up there on the list for wins. It's been a while. I think of the last time I won a 20-minute main, and it's been I didn't get one last year, so that's a big thing for me. Not to only just win a triple crown, the shorter sprint. So this was a huge deal for me. Just coming back and proving that actually am in a better position and in better shape. So, and then also just regrouping from last week. Putting myself in that position and then tipping it over. In like the third turn was so frustrating. So it was just tonight. It was nice to get it done all the way.
Look, Eli Tomac is an all-timer. I don't know where he ranks. Is he the third best ever, the fifth best ever? It's hard to say that he's the all-time best ever. We know the amazing run of McGrath and Carmichael, and then we'll start naming other names as well. He's in that mix, though, right? But I will say this. He's the best at this age and life stage of anyone that we've seen. My guy Justin Brayton snuck in a win against a younger prime Tomac at Daytona once. Mike LaRocco got a win in old age in Supercross terms. Chad Reed was good at an advanced age in Supercross terms. But Eli Tomac is now 32 years old. He is into, let's see, he started as a pro in 2010. This is 15 years later. And you could say tonight, unequivocally, he was the best Supercross rider in the world. It's not that he got a giant lead and a bunch of guys tipped over and they couldn't catch him in the end. He passed Jett Lawrence. Jett Lawrence came back at him. He held off Jett Lawrence. He also got by Ken Roczen and Cooper Webb. He didn't have to deal with Chase Sexton. Hopefully that comes next week. But there's no doubt right now, especially when you also look back at Anaheim and the qualifying and the last to fifth and how strong he was. Easy argument to say that Eli Tomac is the best guy right now. And I don't know if we've ever said something about that in consecutive weeks at someone at that age. Sexton has a right to argue back, but Tomac's certainly in that mix. I don't know if he's going to get 20 more wins and go from 53 to 73 to take McGrath's all-time record away, but he is definitely the all-time best guy at age 32 in the sport. And who knows where it goes from here. I'm just glad we got to see it. And I'm sure you are as well. There's so many angles. The experience of Tomac to not make mistakes under pressure, dealing with lap traffic. Vince Friese didn't do anyone favors, either on the lap when he's on the lead lap and when he's not. He didn't do Sexton any favors in the first couple turns of the heat race, which is why Tomac had a giant lead and why we didn't get to see them battle there. But Tomac had all the pieces. The starts and sprint speed. Actually, I got to say, the sprint speed, the start wasn't actually great in the main. He made passes. He passed Jett early. He got past. He passed him back. He made the right moves at the right time, tiptoed to the lap traffic in a track that was going away. So he showed that experience. He showed the fitness that he now has. You just can't say enough superlatives about it. Eli Tomac. Everyone tips their visor to you, sir. Other news, a lot of talk by a lot of people, including myself, Jett Lawrence, and not looking as good last week as he should have. I know, I'm going to repeat it again. The 2025 Honda was great in Motocross and SMX. It's just different in Supercross, and they have new stuff in the bike that they didn't have when they were racing it back last August and September.
Crazy to think that our frame from last year is actually a stiffer frame, so we're able to run softer suspension. And then another big change for us was gearing. We went back on gearing for the start because last weekend, we were just wheelie boys. For me, especially me, Hunter nailed his start, but for me, I just struggled to keep that front end down and kind of got me in a bit of a pickle at the start of the race already. So we went back on gearing, and it just kind of still eliminated such a bad start. I still messed up a bit. Cooper nailed his start in that main, but that and just getting that full control and feel where the front is, we kind of had a bit of a crust on top at A1 and it would blow through on the front and the rear was pretty stiff. So just figuring that out, and also just trying to break habits from the previous bike, that the previous bike was so high in the rear, and I like to weight the shock a lot, so in turns I'd kind of almost be a bit lazy and lay back a bit, and it would still turn really nice, where this one has a little bit more sag to it, which is better traction. It tracks way nicer, but I have to keep myself forward a bit. So we end up making a bar change before the heat races and going up tonight. And that was just before the night show kind of started. We were kind of realizing I was being a bit lazy and dropping my head back. So did that and just kind of, just feeling better and better on the bike each day and just figuring out, it's a new chassis, it's a new kind of tracks we're going to. Like we had an SMX, but it's still so different, so it's, I'm excited for it. I always like learning and a good challenge.
Now, what's funny is when Tomac got hurt in Denver 2 years ago, it was actually the Lawrence camp. I heard this from Jett and Dazzy's dad, that they were bummed to not have a chance to race Tomac. I think the way they looked at it is, look, eventually we're going to be racing and he will be retired. That's what happens when you're 10 years younger, right? But it would be great to have taken a few lessons, even in a race loss. Take some lessons and learn some things. You know, Carmichael got to race McGrath and learn from him, and Stewart got to race Carmichael and learn from him, and Tomac got to race Ryan Dungey and Ryan Villapoto and learn from them. There was going to be this giant chasm where Jett never got to race Tomac. That's what it looked like in May of 2023. Yeah, they raced last year. Jett got in trouble. He didn't mean that Eli Tomac is not beast mode. He just meant the beast mode wasn't there early in the year last year when he beat him. I'll let him explain this year.
He was on rails for sure, that one. That's what I imagine as beast mode. I'm pretty sure it was unreal.
I don't want to make any predictions about where this goes for the rest of the year. Jett could get way better. Tomac, remember, is coming in with a massive head of steam from a lot of off-season races. I hope he can keep this pace up. This will be awesome and amazing, and we'll get a showdown with Sexton as well. And Cooper Webb will get better. Cooper, for some reason, again, is not really being totally forthcoming. I know he had some time off the bike in the offseason. He did say it an illness. He's going to be better than really the second half of the race, just getting blown away by that Tomac and Jett pace. And Sexton has that speed as well. But we should know 6 years deep into Webb winning Supercross titles against fast guys like Tomac. Don't count him out. He'll get better. This is going to be awesome. But even if it isn't awesome again after tonight, it was already awesome because of tonight. Now, shout out to our sponsor on the Weege Show. You know it's Racetech and their fabulous Gold valves. Your suspension will be plusher, better bottom resistance, and more traction. And Gold valves are made in the USA. Go to racetech.com and improve the suspension on your bike. And don't forget their very underrated engine services. They actually do a lot of engine work for other engine companies because they have machining and engineering capabilities that not everyone has. So engine builders come to them with ideas, and Racetech actually puts them into metal. But they sign NDAs. So you just got to trust me on that one. 250 class, let's shine on this real quick. A star is born with Juju Beaumer. What a cool story this guy is. 2 years removed from basically being discovered. Honestly, we got to shout out Daniel Blair here. We got to shout out Daniel Blair, who has just started to take control of the KTM amateur program at the time. They fast-tracked Juju onto a factory ride when he was a somewhat supported Yamaha rider because he was the fastest qualifier at the Anaheim 2 Futures race 2 years ago. Daniel also brought Cole Davies over from New Zealand, and how about the first half of this race where those two were battling? I mean, Cole Davies did not win tonight at San Diego, but I think you could say he and Beaumer are 1A, 1B for impressive rides. For Davies to be this good this early, wow. And for Beaumer to win, be the point leader in his second year, 2 years ago, relatively unheard of, wow, also. So, sports in a great place with these young guys. As for Deegan, he was bummed on the podium. He was bummed in the press conference. He talked about arm pump. Yeah, this is not going the way many people, really including myself, thought. Just seemed like Deegan was going to dominate. That is not true. And the fact that it's Beaumer improving this much, this rapidly, that's what really makes this intriguing. I will say this. Beaumer has a very special talent for Supercross. Out of all the riders I've ever watched in the Supercross Futures or SMX Next program or whatever you want to call it, Beaumer is the least sketchy rider that I've ever seen on a Supercross track that was an amateur jumping into Supercross for the first time. The least sketchy I've ever seen. I remember Chase Sexton, he of the amazing riding style and 3 different Supercross titles, 2 250s and 1 450. I remember Sexton, I believe at the Atlanta Supercross, going down on the whoops and breaking his femur. It is a rough road for a lot of these guys. And a lot of these guys we only saw when they turned pro. We're seeing them a year or two earlier than that now. Beaumer has always looked good on Supercross. The question was, we've seen riders have talent before and not translate that. Now he's done it. And a shout out to Davey Millsaps for being a big part of that. Honestly, the story for Beaumer last year to this year is not much different than Tomac. He's just in way better shape. He already had the speed and the talent last year. He couldn't show it because he wasn't fit enough. Because I don't really think he was taking the sport that seriously as like an amateur grinder that much earlier. He's kind of new to the full-time training thing. So he needed 2 years under his belt, 1 year as the amateur, 1 year as the pro. Now look at him go. Will he win the title? I don't know. But it's good to have more young stars in the ranks, and Davies is going to be that. And also Ryder D getting better as well. And then you got Jordan Smith, who said he still has a lot of room to grow on that Triumph. They're not finding the comfort that they had at the test track in the East in these races. But here he is with back-to-back podiums and right in the thick of it. So that's exciting as well. We're going to remember San Diego for a long time. Hopefully it's not the last time we get a mano-a-mano battle like this between Lawrence and Tomac. But even if it is the last time we get it, at least we got it. It's a race we are never, ever going to forget. Kudos to you, Eli. Thanks for not retiring. Thanks for not being scared out on the racetrack. And thanks for at year 15 being willing to put in whatever the heck psycho level of work and sacrifice and risk it would take to be that good for 20 plus minutes in a Supercross main event. You cannot fake it in a situation like that. This is the real deal. He's really just as good now as he's ever been.